Okay, but like, what even was this book? It gets crazy in here at the end. Hey everyone, welcome back to Renee's Book Club. I, of course, am Renee with another review of another book. Today is a very popular book, and that would be Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And so, as always, we're going to talk about what this book is about. We're going to talk about my thoughts on the book and ultimately give over a rating. But let's talk a little bit background on this book. So this book, of course, came out a couple of years ago now. Very popular at the time of release and publishing. It still is quite popular now, whether you want to go buy it or if you're at the library, which is actually where I got this copy from. So shout out to the public library. Or if you're on the internet, whether you're on YouTube, TikTok, or anywhere else on social media, you'll see this is a very popular book. And with good reason. There's a lot to take in. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to enjoy. There's a lot to dissect when it comes to this book. As always, mild spoilers for Mexican Gothic, so beware as I go over the synopsis first. So what goes on in this book? Quite a bit. At its basis, that takes place during the 1950s in Mexico. We're following the main character, Noemi. She is very much a socialite. She comes from quite a wealthy family in Mexico City. And so she grows up, and her personality is that of someone from that era in that place. So she very much represents the modern woman. She represents the quintessential, in many ways, 20th century woman who is enjoying the freedoms of education, of course, the wealth that her family has, but a lot of the breakdown of traditional social norms that you found in major cities across the world, including Mexico City. And at the beginning of the book, we follow her as we basically get to know her. She's described very much as a girl who likes to party and she likes to date. She's a little flirty. She's very headstrong. She's opinionated. She's very sure of herself. But she then quickly gets a letter from her cousin who's asking for help. And the letter is a little bit confusing and seemingly a little bit disturbing based on the things that are said in the letter. And so her father sends her to see her cousin Catalina, who lives more in the rural countryside, to see her and see how she's doing. Once we get there to the small town, we meet her husband and the in-laws, who are the Doyle family. The Doyle family is originally from England and they moved to Mexico due to their silver mine. And they're quite wealthy and they're very traditional. They live in this very traditional Victorian home. And in many ways, it is the quintessential, Gothic horror type of setting that you'll find in a lot of other books. So, right, big creepy house that is a little eerie. The inhabitants are all a little weird. Weird things start happening across the house and to Noemi as she tries to unravel what is going on with her cousin Catalina, while also trying to figure out the family that lives there with her. And we quickly realize that she and the rest of her, Noemi's family don't really know anything about the family that Catalina married into. And so they're all very old school, they're very traditional, they're very conservative. They're not exactly very pleasant people. And of course, because of all of those very stark contrasts, they are in many ways at odds with Noemi, who they see as an outsider, an intruder, someone who's basically putting their nose where it doesn't belong. And so the whole journey is her trying to basically figure out what's really going on. Of course, as she goes on this journey, a couple creepy things happen in the home, happen to her, happen to the people around her, and she realizes that she's essentially being led astray and been lied to the entire time. And I should use that as a transition. I do think the book, to me, was very well paced. I saw a lot of reviews on the book comment on how it starts very slowly, and nothing really. The book and the story doesn't really get going until maybe 2/3 of the way, into the third act. And to me, I can see why a lot of people think that. However, I personally really did enjoy the, in many ways, overly descriptive sections of the book, especially at the beginning in the first half. We really get to see what the setting is like. We get to see what the house looks like. We really get vivid descriptions of the home, of the general population, of the characters. We really get to know Noemi quite well, and really get to know her beyond what was described of her, or what maybe how others see her. We really get to know her a little bit on a more intimate level and really get into her thoughts. So to me, it was quite enjoyable. And of course, in a story such as this, and a subject matter as such as this, on the genre that is horror, thriller, and Gothic literature, the descriptions and every minute detail really matters and brings the story to life. So to me, it was actually quite nice. This book is about a lot of things. Very heavy subject matter is discussed in this book, ranging from autonomy over your own body, about sexual abuse, about colonialism, racism, religion, and quite a few more. So there's a lot that the author is really talking about in this book. And I think Moreno Garcia does a pretty good job at navigating this and really telling the point of view of the book and of the main character, and really showcasing the stark contrast of the way things were, if you want to use that term, and the way things have changed into what we know now. So I thought it was handled quite well. I will say there's a lot of trigger warnings that I would preface if you're going to read this book, because everything negative that happens or that is talked about in this book are very graphic and they're very vivid scenes. So be aware of that. There's definitely all kinds of violence against people and otherwise, and of different sorts. So be wary as you go read before you go into reading the book. The nice thing, however, is that the book never feels too heavy-handed in its point of view. I think a lot of books can sometimes do that. It happens everywhere, whether it's music, it's film, and TV. Sometimes it does feel like the creator is kind of like knocking your head over with a certain point of view. Here, I think it's done quite nicely, where you can really empathize for the main character and really understand and sympathize for them, and also feel like you're part of the story. And I will say, and to me, it was done quite well. That might be perhaps because I myself am a Latino male. I, of course, am of Mexican descent, especially with a lot of heavy indigenous roots. And so to me, a lot of the dynamics that I saw at play were things that I could maybe connect with and empathize with on behalf of the main character. This book did also remind me a lot of other stories that I have seen and I have read in recent times. There's a lot of comparisons, in many ways, rightfully so, to some other elements of pop culture that you may have seen. The big comparison that I see is Jordan Peele's Get Out. If you've seen that movie, there's a lot of those similar elements in it. If you've seen lately the new movie that just came out earlier this summer, Blink Twice, also very similar to this book. If you've seen those types of works or read those types of works, and you enjoyed it, I think this is a book that is going to fall right in there. There are a couple of things that I was a little bit surprised by when it came to the plot. I will say I think the romance element of it came a little bit not random, but was certainly underdeveloped for me a little bit. It just didn't feel just as fleshed out as a lot of the other plots of the story. And I would have really liked it if it was fleshed out a little bit more, especially because it seems to kind of turn upside down the classic trope of the damsel in distress being saved by the male protagonist, because in this case, the damsel in distress is actually a male, and our main character, Ami, is the one that is doing the saving. So I would have loved to see a little bit more of that, especially at the end. I think the buildup was good enough. I would have loved to see a little bit more of it at the end. I think that would have been really cool. But that's just me nitpicking. I think the book and the main character was done a lot of justice. This is definitely the kind of story and the kind of book that I would love to see on the big screen, whether it's as a limited series or as a full-on film. I think it has all the right settings for a story like this, especially since, as I mentioned a few moments ago, there have been other stories in the past few years that very much use this type of narrative to tell a story, and I think this book would do an absolute fantastic job on the big screen. So overall, would I recommend this book? And the answer is absolutely. If you're thinking about this book, I would highly read it. If you enjoy thrillers, if you enjoy Gothic literature, if you enjoy books that kind of use traditional tropes and kind of put a nice modern twist on it, I think this is a really good option to read. It's not terribly long, it's about 300 pages. You could definitely knock it down in a couple of sittings if you wanted to. And it's very accessible, very easy read. So yes, I would definitely recommend it. I would give this a solid 4 stars or an 8 out of 10. So definitely recommend Mexican Gothic for all the reasons I just stated, and definitely to pretty much any reader out there. So that'll conclude this video for today. My review of Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Thank you everyone for being here. As always, give me your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I overthought something, whatever the case may be. What are your thoughts on the book? Whether you haven't read it or you're planning to read it, definitely let me know. The next book that we're going to be reviewing is Rebecca. I think I mentioned that in the last video. I just finished reading that book, so that video is going to be coming very, very soon. And with that, I wish you all the best. Take care, keep on reading, and I'll see you in the next one.